And welcome to this episode where I have to say I am really excited. I mean, properly excited, like a kid, because I'm being joined by a salesborg. Justin Michael, you're a salesborg. Could you just explain a little bit what all that's about?
Yeah, so it gives me a chance to say a fun word, which is portmanteau. It just means taking two words and forking them together, like seller and cyborg is salesborg. Really, where this was born out, I was writing a book called TQ, Technology Quotient, and the first thing that happened is the publisher said, "Yeah, we can't release a book called TQ," and I can tell you why. And then I thought I'm going to be Tony Stark, and I'm going to, Iron Man and Jarvis. And then I went, oh, Disney trademarks, can't do that. So I need to come up with some quirky thing. And actually, my co-writer in Australia, Tony Hughes, who's actually very much a Monty Python type fan, because the British comedy has permeated the prison island. We just came up with Salesborg, and we just found it hilarious. And so we photoshopped robots on one half of our face. And then the first iteration of that, we had red robots. And someone emails me privately on LinkedIn, that could be a career limiting move, because I had Terminator 2 on the side of my face. So we still have it, but we turned it blue because we wanted to go utopia, right? Rather than cyberpunk and the Matrix, we wanted to be hopeful like William Shatner, or Captain Picard, with the future is brighter based on the technology. So we made our eyes blue, and we made the robot, uh, Photoshop blue, and now everybody loves it because it's more positive. But the goal is actually to have all this technology fade away and return sellers to quality conversation. So there's a great irony and Wizard of Oz to the whole brand.
And this is what I want to talk about because I've seen your book all about TQ. I've just written a book all about PQ. So technology quotient meets partnering quotient. And I'm thinking, can we be friends? I mean, yeah, from the Terminator styly face, yeah, I know we can. But does TQ and PQ sit together? So could you talk a little bit more around what TQ is so I can start to get my head around it?
Yeah, so TQ is technology quotient, and it did exist before I named it. It's also AQ, adaptability quotient. Basically, what we've seen is like you can improve your EQ, your emotional quotient, to be more empathetic and understand people. You can improve your IQ. You can do tests, you can do brain games like on Lumosity, some of these websites, Sudoku. I mean, you can change your neuroplasticity even when you're older, right? There's all this study about how languages can only be taught to children. Well, if you think of like, any spy who has to just learn Romanian and they're in their 30s, it is possible. You can teach an old dog new tricks. So there's this other area we have now is that our jobs as salespeople, think about it. To get on a Zoom call, you have to log into your email, log into Zoom, you have to have a laptop, hardware. And so technology quotient is your ability to fuse human and machine, usually through a user interface. So even like in a nice European luxury car with paddle shifters and all the sensors and alerts, a lot of these systems are quite complex. Like if you think of using a modern sales system like an Outreach or a Sales Loft, or the complexity of Salesforce.com and all the different dashboards that are possible in that thing, someone who really takes the time to develop their technology quotient and to become more proficient at leveraging software platforms can have a tremendous edge in doing their job. They can send more emails, but better emails, make more dials to better list, have better data, and they actually have a competitive advantage, and their efficiency gains to this. And the first prime decision is just to avoid it a little bit less, because we really find, ironically, that salespeople, and I don't know, there's 7 million per the Outreach press release and 600,000 SDRs, but I think it's more like 30, 40, or 50 million. If you think of small businesses, people everywhere sell, entrepreneurs or sellers. They have an odd avoidance to technology. Unless they had a product background or science or math, they kind of feel like, hey, it's the people of the game. I don't need all those bells and whistles. Problem is that if two reps are equal, both President's Club, awesome openers, closers, just two great reps. The rep that has embraced sales operations and the tech stacks and understands how to use all this new AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, will outperform the other rep who's avoiding the technology stack. That's the thesis of the book. And I realized that you can't learn skills now that in 5 years will help you, but you can learn how to learn. I wanted to write a book about a meta framework, which is the technology quotient. Like, let's improve my ability to learn tech platforms. So no matter which ones are thrown at me, I have some skill sets to assimilate them quickly, learn them. And a lot of it is there's like every time they put out new software, they put free universities up there. There's all sorts of training programs and self-paced learning, and there's Slack channels for RevOps. And there's a lot of ways that you could go without writing a lick of code or doing any math and become quite proficient on the things that your sales operations leader holds dear. Even making incredible looking reports in Salesforce is not that hard if you start to try now, and it'll make you in demand. So that's the thesis. I'd love to hear more about PQ and see where that dovetails from a mindset perspective.
Wow. So let me just double check I've understood, because I've got a human brain and it's close of play here in UK, so it's fairly taxed. Um, TQ, technology quotient, it can start with a salesperson just using laptop, mobile, all those kind of bits of kit. But equally, there's a lot of good software and stuff out there that a smart salesperson can start to leverage if they have high TQ, which then will start to give them a bit of a competitive advantage. So learn how to use that stuff better, and that's where you can help. Yeah, just so I've understood.
That's it. I started, I'm 40, which is the new 30. And I actually started on all this stuff when I was 13 or 14 years old because I was very involved with Adobe Photoshop very early. So I had a tower computer and I was doing these huge multi-layer things. And you had to be really facile with the UI UX, or to learn where all the buttons were, all the settings. It was channel operations. It was just super complicated to do the early versions of Photoshop. You have to really understand the dynamics of photography. So that's sort of where my love affair began with user interfaces. And then I was in the music business for 20 years, and I did a lot of production in Pro Tools and Logic, and a lot of the systems to record music are actually, we'll use another fun English word, but Byzantine, right? From Byzantium, super complicated, using all the buttons. Like reps get into an outreach or a sales loft or a Zant or Groove and these new automation systems, which we'll talk about, because they want to send lots of personalized emails. And it's not immediately intuitive, maybe like a Gmail account or Slack. And they're working on it, but it's, it can only be so simple. It is a skill. You do have to learn that platform and, how to use the custom fields and the brackets. And there is a learning curve to it. And a lot of people shy away from that. Well, I don't need that tech. I'll just pick up the phone. Even dialing now, if you're dialing one call at a time, that's a huge miss. I do 200 dials in 45 minutes and set, 2 meetings to get 3 referrals using a connect and sell. There's also Orem or Connect Leader or Monster Connect. So if you're dialing one phone at a time, a huge miss. If I'm competing with you or training a team against you, I'll crush you because you're behind the tech. So, and now luckily, there's a Luddite culture. Most people haven't embraced this, but 15% of high growth companies are deep on the tech stack. And the high growth companies that are funded with VCs are spending $1,000 per rep per month on technology stacks. According to Lars Nilsson from Salesforce, he's now the VP of Sales Development for Snowflake, former Cloudera, and an awesome person to follow, Lars Nilsson.
Lars Nilsson. Okay. So the tech is about, going back to what you said earlier, getting conversations going. So it's not about being like a robot or anything like that. You said you want to get more human to human contact going, if I've understood correctly.
Yeah, so the great irony is I have a Discord server called Salesborgs, and Discord is, about to raise on a $7 billion valuation. It's a gamification server. Imagine if Zoom meetings and Slack had a stepchild. This thing, you go in there, you can text each other, you can video each other, you can phone. I can share the screen like in a Zoom, but I can chat at the same time. So I go and I do live cold calls on a power dialer. So every day I talk to 20 people, but in an hour. So I'm doing more contact with human beings because of my tech stacks, which are worth about 100 grand, and the vendors put them up for me. I don't spend a penny. It's all sponsored. So thank you to Connect and Sell and Lead IQ and Cloud Task, where I advise. But the point is that even though I'm at the forefront of promoting tech stacks, I'm an old school sales leader at heart. 20 years carrying the bag. I like to go read Charles H. Green and The Trusted Advisor. I like to read books by people in their 60s who were doing, big hardware on-prem stuff in the 90s, because because I radically enable my contact rates, I talk to way more humans, I have more meetings, I have more opportunities. And then it's a game of like spin selling and Neil Rackham and Miller Hyman and Jeff Toll, Mastering the Complex Sell, or New Power Based Selling by Jen Holden, or my mentor, Tony Hughes, and RSVP Selling. It's really all about these massive strategic methodologies like Medic. I'm really just a historian of sales, because once you nail the tech stack pieces, you have to talk to humans and you have to sell. And there's this tremendous crutch where millions of sellers think that sales is programming sequencers and researching all day.
Yeah.
And we've totally lost the human to human interaction, because openings and new closing, it's actually just extremely hard to get anyone on the phone, especially in the pandemic. You know, someone like you is getting 200 emails a week, maybe a day. I mean, what's your LinkedIn inbox look like? It's probably shattered.
I've not looked. I've not looked all day, so yeah, that's gonna be a fun one when I start trying to cook dinner. But but okay, so let me again just go back. So you're saying in an hour you can have, say, I think you said 20 conversations. The quality of the conversation, though, is it just 20 very shallow conversations, or are you saying no, actually, because I can still spend the time having a good chat with somebody, so I'm not wasting time trying to physically, we're obviously over screen at this stage, but face to face or whatever. How have I understood that?
So here's how it works: is the truth in the US. If you dial the enterprise 100 times, it takes you 8 hours in the US. You hit 5 humans max. 5 people will pick up the phone. They'll all be an executive assistant. So, and if you buy the world's best data, I won't mention all the names because Lead IQ will give me cell phones. It's very hard. Now with Lead IQ and cell phones, you can connect more, maybe like 1 in 10, 2 in 10. It's still hit and miss, and that's fine. All data sources have flaws because there's so many job changes. What I'm doing is I'm using a parallel assisted dialer. So when I finally do get people on the phone, I have a framework called Route, Ruin, Multiply, and I'm able to keep them on the phone and get them to talk quite a lot. So yeah, I had this crazy thing where I did 1 hour of cold calling once a day for 1 month, and I generated 1.4 million in pipeline for a cloud task. And several of those deals have closed already. And it's on old completion methodology from 10 years ago. I don't look at any other metrics. I look at completions. How many times a day can I have a quality, actual conversation selling on a phone to a person? And the fact is, if you don't have the right power dialers or sequencers or sales engagement platforms, this isn't even possible. What I'm achieving in 1 hour is about 16 FTE equivalent. It takes a person 2 days to achieve what I do in 1 hour. And I'm living the principles of my book. This is the future. And this stuff is expensive, but it's more expensive. Like just talked to a VP of sales, he's got a team of 3 and they had like 8 meetings last month, like just dismal, because can't get the connect rates, can't get through. So I'm lucky because I have human verified. Like I have a team in Medellin that's pre-calling the numbers, right? I have these different data sources. I have power dials. I have all the latest tech. But when I get on the phone, I'm having a 12-minute call with the CEO. I'm having a 22-minute call with the chief revenue officer. Somebody's inviting me to go to Austin, Texas to go, water skiing on the lake, and I've nearly closed the deal but it's the technology I'm using plus call frameworks that I've developed through neuroscience that are radically different. But because I can talk to so many people live, I can actually learn about sales.
Yep.
Modern sales organizations never talk to humans. They leave voicemails all day. They make less than 10 calls a day. They're sitting all their time, spending hours doing all this research, trying to get an email open, trying to personalize their automations. It's all wildly broken. So I've opened Pandora's box, but I'm fixing sales.
Now this is interesting. See, I thought, I've come into the conversation with an open mind. I thought I'm not going to like this stuff because it's all going to be about automation and taking the human out. What I'm hearing is you are putting the human in even more, which is, for me, that's where I come at it with the PQ, with partnering skills, those elements which we use to really build the relationship and connect with people better, which is really key in a sort of more complex, sophisticated sale. You're saying, well, yeah, Fred, I'll use your PQ, send me the stuff over, I'll add it in and mix it in with all the other methodologies. And because it's not methodology, it's more of a mindset. And the framework I talk about in the book actually says, take your favored one and mix it in, because we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Use what's working, but just have this mindset that we are becoming more collaborative in selling, or we should be becoming more collaborative than ever before. This helps you get your head around that. So what you're saying is, yeah, with you. I think what you're saying is, yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's just do more of it, and this stuff will help you do that more often. If I'm understanding right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because the truth is, like Ken Krog released this, sellers sell 36% of the time. Like we are going to see, millions. I think it's, an outreach press release, 6.8 million sellers, 600,000 these are SDRs. The valuation of the sales tech stack tools is going to go from 700 million to 5 billion per Aragon Research. You know what's going to happen? Selling time is going to go down, not up. We're going to reach a point, peak sales tech in the next 2 years, where a seller talks to humans under 20% of the time, sells under 20%, even under 10%. Then you look at quotas, right? Up like 50% are hitting quota. Why? They're not getting real at bats. If you think, liking and tweeting and doing stuff online is doing anything, it's not. Nobody can buy, no one in the pandemic can invest in 6 and 7 figure software and do that because they were loving their LinkedIn interaction with you. You're going to have to get on the phone, get in front of them, understand their fears, their pains, their concerns, their war stories, how they did it wrong before, and get down to brass tacks. So I'm sorry, I've done a lot of big deals and I've never done it totally digital. Now it's possible to do it over Zoom and build a rapport, but it's a lot more like a campaign. You need a lot of consensus. You can't just have the rubber stamp or the bully with the juice, as Steve W. Martin talked about with heavy hitter selling. This whole single, fixed mindset rule, dictatorship, or one person decides. Leaders now are servant leaders. They care about their team. They want to bring their whole team in. 5 people are going to do the deal. 8 people. It takes a village, a cast of thousands. It feels like Braveheart a lot. So I'm actually designing these systems to return to an environment where the SDR goes away. The idea of this analyst that researches. I want SDRs to be inside sellers. I want them on the phone, on Zoom calls. How many completes did you get a day? How many live humans did you speak to today and position, and they objected, and you worked through a solution? That's sales. Otherwise, it's marketing. Analyzing, sending research, and personalized templates is Marketo, it's Pardot, it's drip marketing, it's inbound. And what we've done is we've masked an outbound approach with an inbound, overlay, and it's severely limiting the industry. But you understand, I'm the biggest proponent of these technologies, but I want to slow the automation down. More personas, more personalization, smaller batches of email, better emails, more relevant. Yeah, personalized, but look, it's all personalized, but there's no business case in your email. I get it. You love fly fishing, go Bears. You both hike, but you haven't once told this person how you can help their business. I would ignore this. This is for Facebook.
Yeah, no, you're right. And again, the stats are showing, aren't they? Decision-making units, buying committees, whatever language you use, they're increasing. Gartner's telling us that. There's some other stats, aren't there, that buying organizations are spending less time talking to salespeople. You're coming in further down the process. They're using less time to speak to you because they're having to make more time understanding the info they've got. So it's get hold of that and use it really valuably, using whether you call it old-fashioned or just good quality selling, the H2As, the person stuff. How interesting.
Yeah. So I'm keen to learn your methodology in your book. I mean, for me, this is really a game of active listening. I love concepts like, being the doctor or the detective. I love the idea of pain development. I've been very inspired by the life and times of David Sandler, not to go emulate the Sandler way, but come up with my own methodologies. The Justin Michael method, which I've released and trained 1,000 reps on, and it's based on neuroscience. And I, like you, do believe in the amalgamation, that you should train on the systems and A/B test everything, A/B test the technologies, subject line, the messaging. My main philosophy, though, in the methods is that you just got to look at how we communicate. First of all, the popular platforms are Facebook Messenger, text messaging, WhatsApp, TikTok, Snap. Where are all the kids, right? Nobody is communicating with anyone they care about with a 3-paragraph expository essay with bullet points. It's only for taxes, government. You get a bill, something went wrong in the court, like maybe internally in companies, there's this odd thing where you like CC everyone and then you write this essay, that looks like a college thesis, and it's like, also I kind of question that because that's kind of disingenuous. Okay, when I dress my whole company, I really want this to be really dry and conservative and seem generic. I, I would love to just hear from the CEO like what they actually think in a few sentences. The people I train that send these hyper short emails, first of all, 3 sentences takes 3 seconds for the brain to process. 3 paragraphs takes 13 seconds. It's so long, it triggers the flight mechanism in the brain. They're just like, should I delete it? Should I delete it? Am I getting billed? Is something wrong? And if it's heavy enough, you personalize it enough, it's not only creepy, but they go, oh, this is going to cost a lot. They start, put in the circular file, never respond. I also found that the neocortex likes imagery. When you're really tired at night and you're reading, it fades. But when you go outside, you look at stars, or where you are, you just look at Stonehenge or crop circle or something good like that, just giving you a hard time. But you're not going to have your eyes go fuzzy. Your brain can handle imagery. It processes it 60,000 times. So when you look at product marketing, it's all these awesome decks with these images and Venn diagrams and these cool things. And we write the email to sell the customer 3 paragraphs, hard to read, full of jargon. So I train people to put images into email visual prospecting. Vidya gets this, the video prospecting, video drops on LinkedIn. Now, call frameworks are crazy too, because call frameworks are always like, I interrupt you and I'm going to hook you. The reason for my call, I'll persuade you. Check out this value prop. You're going to object. It's all like pugilistic, like this warlike thing.
It
I'm
is,
just
isn't
going
it?
to call you and get you to talk. So I have this radical framework where I pitch later. I call you and I find out what you're using and I validate you. Oh, yeah, that competitor is great. How did you install it? How did it work for you? And I get them to talk all about why they shouldn't buy from me and validate where they are, and never once say, oh yeah, I know about Beta Corp, our service is better, or feel felt found, or all these trickery, manipulative strategies. I do this power shift thing. So I know my friend who's a sales trainer, he was listening to this call and it was on for 22 minutes. And the prospect is just talking and talking and talking. The prospects forget I'm there. And then they're like, wait, what are you selling again? What did you call about? And they ask to be pitched. And the weirdest thing is people love to buy, they hate to be sold. As long as you are convincing, persuading, cajoling this person, they are clawing back. The minute they turn and ask you and take interest, it's so subtle, but when that polarity shifts on a sales cycle or on a call, that's when you know you're going to get the deal done. So I think I have taken an Elon Musk first principles approach to email and phone and released systems that are hyper concise. Brevity is the soul of wit, Shakespeare. Um, Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, Leonardo da Vinci. And it's funny, like most of what I'm doing in the world has nothing to do with tech stacks. But once you nail it manually, like a paper prototype, and you can go through with just your Gmail and some good communication or just a phone, that's where you start to enter in with these scaling platforms, because otherwise you're just amplifying garbage. I love that expression. It was a good band in the 90s though.
Amplifying garbage. I love that. I love little sound bites and stuff, and you can see me scribbling stuff down because you're giving me so many little bits there, which are fantastic, and some very interesting stuff. And I say it's just I'm so, I don't want to say surprised, happy, happy that when we're talking tech, but you're, again, I sort of risk repeating myself, talking about tech so that we can talk to people more about people stuff and what people want, which is brilliant, because ultimately that's where the partnering skills, the PQ, partnering quotient, comes into play. So yeah, I'd say we're very much on the same page, very much. And I love a bit of neuroscience. I do love that. So yeah, is there plenty of that in the book as well?
Yeah, I think the book touches on this stuff. I mean, Tony and I, and my co-author Tony Hughes, he wrote the Joshua Principle and combo prospecting. I was the case study in the book. I've been working with him for about 8 years, and we really are talking about not the weaponization of top funnel. We have a creed where it's like, now that you have this powerful technology, there's an ethics and integrity issue. I worked for a startup company called Outbound Works where we sold well, basically like sales development as a service. We were open about humans and machines. We knew it wasn't the artificial intelligence the whole way. We were honest with the customer. This is a Rube Goldberg machine. There will be humans touching your data, touching your account. But we also had really cool personalization injection engines of Swedish technology. I sent millions of emails out of Outreach and SalesLoft and Reply.io. And this book is about those tech stacks. And the purpose every time of pulling out a use case is so that you can make it more effective and efficient, and it's better for the customer, not to fool them, not to just blast. I'll never forget, this company was doing like 30,000 emails a week, and they just weren't, the meetings weren't there. They're getting some good replies, things were happening. Well, I got on a phone, and in 2 days I set 5 meetings, working very few hours manually, and they just didn't get it. How is that possible? Well, when you send at ultra high volumes, you can get on blacklists, you can blow out your domain, there's a lot of risk. Everything a book is about leveraging the technology to elevate selling and to get to a place where there's more quality in your funnel. You're using intent data, so you pick the accounts that have a higher propensity to already be searching for Hadoop. So your solution is already pre-matched to the account-based sales or account-based marketing you're doing. So like every layer in the stack, you're measuring your calls so you can meter your talk time ratio and your words per minute. And then you can have a self-actualized rep who's just like, oh, I need to slow down when I talk to folks in this region, or I notice that I'm not listening, or my questions aren't right, or I have these uptones. So like gong, chorus, exec vision, that's really cool. That's cool for that. But what's the purpose? To improve the prospect experience.
Amazing. No, I'm liking it. I am liking the sound of this a lot. When you talk about improving the prospect, customer, buyer, again, doesn't matter what you call them, about improving their experience. That's what it's all about, really, isn't it? And again, we're sort of talking. It's really interesting listening to you, Justin, because you're talking about very, very modern stuff, and then really good, solid, classic. And whether we go back 40s, 50s, I don't know, maybe even different centuries back in what good human contact is and selling, bartering, whatever. Yeah, it's a really interesting balance that you're talking there. I think getting better to have more human conversation, human contact.
Yeah, so there's a lot of lessons to be had from the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians, and right back to the 50s and 40s. I see myself as somewhat of a sales historian. I've read hundreds of books going all the way back, and there really is there's a lot of nuance to it. Not much has changed in 100 years because our brains haven't changed. Whether you believe the world is 4,000 years old or 64 million years old, whatever school, all I can tell you is it's the same human brain in the 50s that we're doing right now in 2020. No change here.
Yeah.
So again, no one wants to be sold. They want to buy. You have to create the desire. That's why marketing works to a degree inbound, because the person is hitting Google, typing something in, they're finding it, they're landing on your page, they're submitting the lead. It's all opt-in. But selling is we have to go outbound, interrupt you. You didn't opt me in. Hey, I didn't raise my hand. But strangely, inbound has a really fast closing curve. It comes in fast, but outbound can be more profitable because your competitors aren't there. You can literally trigger latent pain. You can come in, define the problem, define a custom solution. They can bring the competitors in, and the competitors are just your column fodder. You're creating your reality. That might take a little longer and be harder. And when you combine the flywheel of outbound and inbound and sales and marketing, sort of this marketing, credit to Warren Zena and Peter Strokor, a couple of people working on a CRR collective, it's really powerful. So there are automation points and applications of artificial intelligence across account-based marketing, across the entire full revenue funnel. And you have this new emerging field, which I'm definitely a strong voice in, called revenue operations, which is the confluence of sales operation and marketing operations. And if you really want to get techie, people are talking MOPS, SOPs, ROPS, all this stuff, but which is the abbreviations. These are somewhat black magic and dark arts. But again, it's like the book. It's people that are just deep on these platforms, using them, configuring, optimizing. What happens is you get a layer cake of a stack. And now you have Sales Navigator, Zoom Info, SalesLoft, Gong. And so you have these 4 layer cakes. and maybe intent data. So 4 or 5 different systems, all talking to CRM Salesforce, all going distributed remote. What do you need? You need bidirectional APIs. You need data governance. If someone DNCs on this list, another SDR could add it. I'm throwing a lot of jargon, but what I'm saying is that someone has to make the systems talk. And humans and systems have to have glue. And there's other systems that create the glue to tie these Frankenstacks, these tech stacks together. And companies like Salesforce and the big clouds are trying to release converged systems. We're seeing subspecialization. I can really go into this. I mean, this guy, Aaron Ross, wrote a book. I'm sure you're familiar, Predictable Revenue, 2011. Pretty much everyone's read this book. It's the Bible of Silicon Valley scaling. It created the SDR-AE industrial complex. He didn't create it to make an industrial complex, but you have people that are applying it rotely. They're not configuring it custom to their business. They raise $5 million. They hire SDRs. They hire AEs. They never question that model. What I found when I wanted to write the sequel as a disciple of Aaron Ross's book is that the 2020s is typified by so many sales tech stacks choking out the rep. The average marketer in the Fortune 1000 has 91 solutions in their tech stack.
91. Okay.
91. So we're going to see two things. There's a lot of private funding in 2019. 40% of the funding rounds were 100 million. We're seeing a ton of mega rounds now. Companies are achieving $1 trillion valuations. There's hectocorns, decacorns, billions old school, right? I want to be 10 billion. I want to be 100 billion, right? Sounds like Dr. Evil, like $1 million. We have to hire all these unskilled people, and they have to make meetings happen because software is eating all these verticals worldwide. Silicon Prairie, right? London is becoming a huge hub for SaaS, software as a service. And how are we going to hire and train these folks? So more people than ever needing to get meetings. But here's the problem. The prospects in the Fortune 1000, like it's the same amount of chief marketing officers. So this happened in ad tech is the best case. There's, 234 ad tech solutions in 2012. By 2020, there's 7,200 ad tech solutions. How many more CMOs are there in the F1000 to sell to? Less. So those chief marketing officers are getting bombarded by all these VC-backed companies to make a better mousetrap, and they're getting on average 250 emails a day. Eventually, they just shut off the switchboard, shut off their email. Everything's going through an executive assistant, get a secondary email address. So opening becomes the new closing, and more VC and funding is being poured into the top of the funnel to get meetings because it's harder and harder. You see how the cycle is like a dragon just chasing its tail. So a lot of what I've developed is ways to leverage these systems to do things that are pattern interrupts that really stand out from the herd. And it doesn't take much. Not many people actually cold call these days, and they don't do it in a quality way or concise way. Most of the emails look exactly the same. Most subject lines exactly the same. And people tend to copy templates from the internet, copy each other's stacks, and do things a certain way. Because again, it's hard to understand this stuff. And so they take like a rote approach. Now, I've taken a Bob Ross learning approach to make it easy to hack it. But I also train a lot of people individually in teams on advanced methods, and I consult companies on revenue operations to design these stacks in a bespoke way.
Cool. We will get your contact details, and I'm just aware of time, and then we probably need to start wrapping up. So, I mean, you've really taken us on a journey, and I suspect there's probably some people listening to this and feeling somewhat overwhelmed. What would be a very simple way for somebody who's kind of sitting, well, I can open up my laptop, I can get on a Zoom call, I've got a mobile phone. What would be like a little baby step that just starts to get them heading off in the right direction so that then they can go, oh, that's useful, and just start to explore without just thinking, I'm not going to do anything because it's all too frightening?
Yeah, so I think the thing right now is embrace the phone. Reply rates in the pandemic were down by 35%. SalesLoft, Jeremy Donovan, their SVP, looked at that. Now they've come up. LinkedIn has gone from site number 40 to site number 16 on the planet. So get active on LinkedIn, reaching out to people. When people look at you, call their phone. Phone numbers on LinkedIn, or you have a data source. Just start using your phone some more. Look at your day and say, how many people did I talk to? Call your first degree connections, call people up, talk to people, schedule Zoom calls, drop a link. If you just do that, it's powerful. Now, it's part of a book called Combo Prospecting, comboprospecting.com. And this book answers this question, because the number one thing you're going to have to do is MacGyver your stack, because no one's got the money to do all the upgrades right now. Some companies do. VC's booming if you're in software, but I'm sure you're saying, not me. I can't afford all these, mouse traps and bells and whistles and gizmos. Well, here's the thing. Just like we started the call, you have a tech stack, whether you like it or not. You probably have an iPhone. So you have a supercomputer with all human knowledge in your pocket. So I'm not saying you have to buy anything. The thesis of my book is be 1% better. Everyone uses Excel about 5%. What if you become 1% better every month at Excel? Learn a couple pivot tables and macros, some basic features. I used to do big scale operations offshore. I became pretty masterful with Excel because I had to, and I didn't want to. Avoid your stack. Whatever gear you have, read about it. Take a course. Look at YouTube. You know, go on some of these sites like LinkedIn Learning. There's so much self-paced training to do this. Be open to avoid your stack a little less. Think of the show MacGyver, right? He'll disable a submarine with a toothpick and umbrella. You don't have to have the tools. You just have the will, right? Like if you have the will, you can get the skill. The first problem is that overwhelm. This stuff is not complicated. Don't let anyone, just because I can talk fast doesn't mean it's hard. You'd be amazed at how hard these companies are trying to make it intuitive and easy for you to use them. And you'll see how many free resources they all put out and enablement and webinars to get you going. Reach out to me, Justin Michael on LinkedIn. If you're confused by this, you have questions, I'd be happy to guide you.
That is so decent of you. Firstly, to share your thinking, to kind of probably talk about everything that's in your book anyway, but then to sort of give us those I asked for a tip and you gave us 6, 7. I don't know. I couldn't write fast enough, but of how to do it. And MacGyver your stack, that's going to stick in my mind because that made me giggle when I was at university in Spain. I used to watch MacGyver every afternoon. I don't know why. It just reminded me of that. That's weird. But no. So be open to not avoiding that. That's the thing. And just I'd say baby steps. Do this. And then you will start looking to maybe take a bigger step and understand some of the, really funky stuff that you've talked about, is what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm writing a book called Technology Quotient. It's gonna be worldwide in June. Pre-order it now and have access to my group, the Salesborgs. You'll find me at Justin Michael on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm a proponent of technology, but I want to leverage the most advanced technologies ever known to return to innocence, which is sales, is just talking to people. Because that's what I did 13, 14 years ago when I got started, 20 years ago. I talked to people so much every day, I got hoarse. I had to drink tea. I had like 50 conversations a day. This is the heyday when everyone answered the phone. I just did phone sales. And ever since that time, it's been reducing. But weirdly, if I know if you can get in front of your best prospect, you can sell them something. The more at bats you get. So that's the goal of all the work.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate that.
Thanks, Fred.